We're really glad to have you guys here. This event is presented by Enjinstarter, Ex-Populus, and Kriger Archives. We have Edge of NFT, who's our media partner, and a very special few guests who are going to speak with us today. I'm going to hand the mic over to Josh from Edge of NFT to introduce them. But thanks, guys.
What's up, everyone? It's awesome to see people here on a Friday. We made it, right? And we're still interested in having stimulating conversations, meeting new people, co-creating. It's a really beautiful thing. It's an honor to be part of this event. My name is Josh Kriger. I'm one of the co-hosts and co-founders of Edge Up Company. We do have a podcast called Edge of NFT, which you can check out all over Spotify, iTunes, all those Web2 platforms. We'll fix that soon. And then we also produce NFT LA, which was the largest Web3 summit on the West Coast. I'll share a little alpha there after this panel, but I really do want to talk to these amazing gentlemen that have more credentials than I could even get through in an hour. But I'll let them sort of share a little bit more about what they're up to in the space when they get on stage. I'm really excited to introduce Prakash, as well as Baron, as well as Soby. Come on up, gents. For a little bit of background. Let me give you guys a little bit of background on these really important people in the space we call Web3. Prakash is the CEO and co-founder of Enjinstarter, which is an incredible launchpad focused on blockchain gaming, entertainment, and metaverses. He led the team to raise $5.5 million in both private and public sales and launched the business in October of 2021. They've done over 45 IDOs, so that's a lot of experience and perspective. And they've worked on some notable projects, including Defina, the Killbox, and Path DAO. These guys have produced 24 to 53x returns. That sounds really good right now in this beer. There's a lot here, Baron.
Just take two.
We got the Black Santa Company, which was a really dope project, big and no label. Sports and lifestyle and culture is another one of his initiatives. Also, fun fact, Baron was one of the original investors in Vitamin Water and also helped launch Thrive Market. He's been in the B2B and the B2C space, Web2 and Web3. We also have Soby at Soby Life. Soby's a co-founder of Ex-Populus, a Web3 game studio. Amazing one at that. He's been working with Hollywood celebrities and athletes and bringing them into the crypto life, including Mike Tyson and OBJ. First generation immigrant, and we'll learn more about him as well. I want to kick it off to Prakash. Why are we all here today? What's going on, man?
So the inspiration around what we're doing today is to get a group of projects that were coming from Singapore and Malaysia. So we called it NFT SEA, which is a short form for Southeast Asia. And the whole idea really is that if we come together as a community, we become a lot stronger. And that's really the spirit of what we're doing today. Every one of the partners contributed a lot to make this a grand success. And the whole idea really is to showcase what Southeast Asia can offer, and then to kind of connect us to the West, so that collectively all of us can get a lot bigger and better.
It's a lot easier when you're organizing a conference to look at what's happening here in front of you in the US, and it's easy to overlook projects that are happening in other continents globally. And I've met the founders of these projects being featured here. Each one of them is incredible. What they're doing is incredible. So congrats on you guys for reaching outside of the walls of the conference and then what's really going on in the space. So I'd love to ask you guys, all of you really, how has Web3 opened up collaboration possibilities across continents and cultures? You want to kick this off, Soby?
Wait, this is what gets worse. I think Web3 is really interesting because it's kind of like this idea of like a globally inclusive village. Before the internet too, it's like you were stuck where you were geographically. That was like all you ever knew. And like depending on where you are and all this stuff, there's few things that allowed you like an economic opportunity. And then like the internet rolls around, and like part of the internet was interesting because it's like, yeah, you can become a content creator, all this stuff. But like the biggest trick the Web2 platforms have played on us is like convincing us the traditional internet is free. Like you provide way more value to YouTube or TikTok than they give you. And then Web3 rolls around, and that's where things get, like, I think, really interesting. This idea of, like, 1,000 fans theory, but also beyond that is, like, being able to collaborate with people across, like, the world. And there is, like, this thing in Web3 uniquely than other industries about, like, anonymous culture. As much as we like to say, like, we're very inclusive, all this stuff, everyone has biases, like, that's just human beings, right? Like, I judge someone based on what they're wearing sometimes, especially if it's, like, a sports jersey. That's, like, it's not my team. I'm like, oh,
I get it.
you know what I mean? But with, like, a non-culture, it's, like, interesting because it's super egalitarian. Like, you don't know anything about this person. You can have, like, an anime profile picture. You're just judging them from the content of their character. And, like, that's the cultural thing. But beyond that, like, what I like to say is in the free market, the purest form of virtue is dollars, right? Like, politicians, all this stuff, love, like, saying this side or the other, but, like, where's the money going, right? And, like, Web3 enables us to collaborate on both socio-economic level that was impossible in traditional systems.
Aaron, what are your thoughts, man?
I would say one, thanks for having me here. This is a dope event and also a dope cause. For more than us, we feel like Web3 is about us, right? And how do you define and how you build your us, right? And so, we wanted to start looking at, like, of course, Web2 for athletes was about give. Musicians, give. Then athletes would get great contracts. But think about the artists, musicians, the makers. They get bad loans. And so, if you do have a hit album.
But those contracts come with handcuffs too in some way.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's a bad loan, it's a bad contract, and you can never buy your way out, right? And so just thinking about Web3 is like, let's give good contracts, right? Let's give good access and collaboration. Let's make sure everybody is taken care of that works on projects, right? And then let's create economy, let's create culture, let's create like-mindedness, and create rules that we can abide by as the people who are actually fucking living life, you know what I mean, who want to connect. We don't need the higher powers that be. We don't need the Facebooks. We don't need a lot of these bigger, like, media superior people to have a superior point of view. Politicians for what we want to move forward, how we want to move our culture, our version of us forward in a way that we can all be protected, we can all be secure, and we can all be aligned.
I think for me, Web3 is a lot about the community. The spirit of the community always has been to come and help each other. Every meeting that we've had, or every interaction that we've had this entire week at NFT NYC, everyone will find a way to help each other. And I think the other key thing really is it's a creators economy. And we feel creators can be anybody, right? You can create music, you can create art, you can create content. And the whole idea really is that we have full ownership of the content that we're creating, and the community starts to come in and starts to participate with it. And this is where the real culture aspect happens, right? The entire week has been about experiencing new cultures and experiencing how can culture now enter into Web3, tell a story, connect people, and also maybe do some impact, right? A lot of projects have been talking to us about charitable aspects, about the work that they can do, and I think that's really where the future really is.
That's great. Yeah, and you brought one of the projects you're working with, Baron, here that crosses some borders, and I'd love to sort of start with you and ask, what's been some of the connections you've made through the space that maybe you wouldn't have otherwise been able to make in your life? Like, what were some of the experiences you've had the last few years with Web3 that are like, damn, that was cool?
My co-founder right here, Flip Benjamin. So I met him. He actually tricked me. So he was, just tagging me on social media, and he had created a design for like this digital office space, and then I saw that Taco Bell ripped him off. Basically, took the design. So if you see the new Taco Bell, give credit to this man. And then I was like, damn, this dude is dope. Then he had like this virtual ribbon cutting, and he tagged me in it, and he was like, yo, this virtual ribbon cutting, I'm opening up this like virtual office. I was like, hold on, what the fuck is going on? So I hit him up, and about 2 months into us start working together, he was like, yeah, like I created my own fake article and like press release. And I was like, dude, you're so genius. That's exactly what I would do. And so when you think about, and Flip, grew up on 85th Street. He grew up on 88 in South Central Los Angeles. It took us this time in our lives to meet each other. So our world, where we come from, we're divided by streets. We can't leave our block. And so when we connected, I was like, yo, we got to do a better job for South Central Los Angeles, trying to connect us around the world. Then you look at my boy right here, Victor Armer. He's from Germany, Austria, right? And we connected almost 3 weeks ago, and I was like, yo, you my brother, you moving to LA. And so like we're not leaving each other's head. My brother Alex, over there from London, building out an incredible sneaker marketplace. We just met this trip, and now we attached at the hip. But just thinking about Web3, right, and thinking about international and like the way I want to invest my time, the way I want to invest my resources and community is just like, this guy has built, an incredible project with a hard wallet, right, that, allows us to have our own debit card and payment system. And so when you start thinking about it, it's like, oh, the culture has currency now. The culture has a transactional tool. The culture now has a metaverse, right? Sneaker culture is the culture, so we should own that, and we should all be in London, at the end of September, celebrating the fact that designers come from everywhere, shoemakers come from everywhere, music, hip hop, you know what I mean? And Web3 is what's bringing us together.
Man, that's so true. That's awesome. And it sort of makes me reflect on the fact that one of my co-founders, Ethan Janney, who's somewhere, I didn't even meet him until like 6 months into our business. We started our podcast during COVID, and the first time we met, we had a podcast to do, and we couldn't find good Wi-Fi, which is a real challenge when you're doing podcasts. So we actually did a podcast with Quid, the CEO of Quid. We were all sitting on a bed in our hotel room, and literally had just met for the first time 30 minutes before that. So, true story, and one of our other team members, is in New Zealand, and we met him for the first time when he came out for NFT LA. So there's a lot of stories like that. It's pretty cool. Well, I'd love to get Soby and Prakash's perspective on some of the similarities and differences in the culture in Asia. Like for those of us that maybe haven't spent enough time over there, and maybe talk, since like there's a lot of cool streetwear sort of crossovers that we're talking about, like how streetwear and street culture differs in Asia as we're thinking about opportunities to collaborate.
Before I get on that, I want to get into the last question you asked.
Yeah,
I thought
sure.
that was really interesting. Because for me, like Web3 has given me like a lot. It's actually a trip sometimes when I think about like I'm sitting next to fucking Baron Davis right now, you know what I mean? And that's like, but it's like game recognized game, you know what I mean? And like that's the interesting thing is like last time I was in New York, I went to dinner with Takashi Murakami, right? And like I'm talking to Jeff Staple, all these other people, and I suddenly feel like, even when I was talking to Flip earlier, we're getting to know each other, and we're like, oh shit, we know a bunch of the same people. And like the world is actually way smaller than we think it is, right? And I think Web3 like accelerates that, and like culture is something that we all participate in, right? And street culture especially, like, I grew up, I wouldn't say I grew up poor, because that's a mindset, but I grew up without money. And like, I was always super into street culture, and traditionally, all you get for being on shit that's like cool before anyone else was, you just get to annoy your friends, like, oh, I listened to Young Thug before you, I listened to Travis Scott before you, like, that's it. But like in Web3, you actually make money from that, right? And so streetwear has always, and street culture in general, like, has always been at the forefront of stuff. And like a lot of culture that like mainstream culture steals from. Like we see this like historically a lot in African American culture, Asian culture, like things just get like like, I don't really like culture, like, you know, they get appropriated to some degree, right? And so, what's interesting is now you have this idea of like, the same way streetwear like originally was super like punk and like counterculture, and now like Supreme's got bought out by a few $1 million, right? By like a huge like PE firm. If you told someone that in like the early 2000s, they would have never believed that. Yeah. Exactly. And now if you look at it, it's like it's breaking down like these arbitrary barriers that we have. And so like people are understanding like, oh, you consume the same things as I do. We like the same things, or like people are converging. And for streetwear brands, I think if you actually notice like a lot of luxury brands, and I think part of that's because you have our Arnault family that owns like basically every luxury brand, loves Web3, right? Like Balenciaga, Gucci, all these people are accepting crypto now, right? And it's really interesting when you think about the fact that why are they doing that, right? And not these other people. And I think it's because they like permeate culture to some degree, right? Like you always look at streetwear stuff like that. Like those people are always ahead of the curve, right? And I think it's really interesting to see technology and culture converge in that way right now.
Right on, man. I appreciate those insights, and thanks for sharing. So, I mean, that's a good segue though. Like, how are things different in Asia than here? And what can we do to
I'm from Sacramento, dude, so I don't really know.
but you've done some global stuff.
Yeah.
So you know,
He's from Sacramento. I can talk about it. Come on, man. Yeah.
You guys just taste the moderator. You should not answer that question.
He's from Sacramento. I did sign one of the first sneaker deals with Li Ning back in 2007. And I remember when we were talking, I was at Reebok at the time, and we were talking about, you know, where did we want to go? Where did I want to take my brand? I was like, I want to take it to China, right? Because there are 400 million basketball fans, and you know, we had been over there a couple times with Yao Ming, and for the first time in my life, like I walked through the mall, there's 8,000 people following me, or Steve Nash, Yao Ming, you know, but it's still like I got my 500, you know what I mean? But it was like, you know, these people love this game. And they're like, they knew more about me than any US fan. And so when we signed the deal with Li Ning, the goal was to bring Western civilization to Western civilization, to have Western storytelling meet Western storytelling, Western artists to meet Western artists, and to really like take this culture of basketball, of artistry, and start interweaving it in the fabric of NBA players, and help Li Ning expand their brand and their footprint. And so that became kind of like Kobe start taking his tour, now LeBron. Now, you know, when you look at culture through the eyes of basketball, music, fashion, tattoos, art, right? Now when you start looking at, you know, NBA basketball players, or the Chinese basketball, or the P League, right? You know, it's like you starting to see U.S. players not even care about playing in the G League or sitting on the bench in the NBA. They're going to China to play. They're going to Singapore to play. And so, you know, basketball is a remedy and a recipe for uniting culture, uniting utility, uniting community. And so I think that, you know, for me, like the ability to understand, right? Even if I don't understand the language, I can understand through the culture, through the expression, right? Through following directions, being led by the people who are the insiders. So I would say for us, it's like basketball is our inroad for what we do at MTU. And with that, it aligns us through so many different verticals of music, of travel, of food. You know, we can connect on so many different spaces just through this sport.
Beautiful. And Prakash, you know, you've traveled the world, and you know, you've launched projects globally. So what's your perspective?
Sure. So Southeast Asia is, you know, the home to a lot of creative talent. That's where Infinity came from. They kind of drove this whole P2E as a trend. But it's still a very, very small community. I mean, if you collectively bring everyone together in Southeast Asia, it's substantial. But there's a whole lot of talent, there's a whole lot of good content and projects that are coming up, but they don't have the ability to tap into larger markets, right? And that's kind of where we saw this opportunity, and a lot of it is what I experienced at NFT LA, right? Coming from Singapore to LA, post-pandemic, there was like the first event that I attended after 2 years. And when people started meeting me and understanding that I was from Singapore, everyone found ways to kind of work with us and collaborate with us. And that's kind of where we saw this magic that could happen if we connect both worlds together. And the beauty really is that if we can actually tap into a lot of key influencers from the West and now bring them back to the East, it's going to be big, win-win for everybody, right? Because the Asians are very, very supportive, they're big fans, and they want to find a way to kind of interact with this, and this is where we need to collaborate so that the content or the way that we are executing it in Asia is something that they can relate with, and then a lot more new people can actually come into Web3.
I just want to piggyback on that. And I think on this side, we got to do a better job of allowing that to happen. You know what I mean? And so, I think Web3 is the right platform because we need to allow these stories to be stretched and be told on our end, by, NBA players or people in the culture. Like it's important, and I think this room is important because this is where all the dots can connect, right? And we can start to build that two-way funnel that we're talking about and show that, this is the best use case. We are the best use case because we are, Web3.
Yeah, so Soby, when you're thinking about developing games and making sure they have not just a local impact, they have a global impact, what is the recipe for success in your mind?
I think the world has become a lot more global in nature. To Baron's point, a lot of stuff like the NBA, it's really interesting when you meet people that are foreign that have the same interests as you, right? Because that's we just unite around that. You like basketball too, you like football too. Most of the time it happens in basketball, not really football, right? And I think part of it is realizing that there's certain game modes that are more popular regionally, gacha games, for instance, are very popular in Asia. I spent way too much time playing Dota and all this stuff, and I think being early to the internet, early gaming culture, that really translated well into Web3 culture, because I spent a lot of my time as a kid just on the computer, right, and playing video games from people all over the world. I would literally alt tab, write some shit up in Google Translator, I was Chinese, so I could send it to Chinese gold farmers in World of Warcraft, so it would give me a view. You know what I mean? And so that showed me the world is a lot smaller than we think it is, right? Human beings in general, we've been playing games for years and years and years, right? That's just kind of who we are intrinsically. And so co-founder of Ex-Populus and Clement is my co-founder somewhere in the crowd, who actually didn't meet in person until recently. We've known each other for 5 years. But he's Singaporean, and I never even realized that. Should we live across the world from each other, right? Fun is just fun, right? And I think a weird trap that a lot of Web3 games fall into. For instance, a lot of video games use databases, right? They don't advertise themselves as a database, right? We leverage the blockchain. We have digital assets, which are NFTs, but at the end of the day, we're trying to build a fun game. And I think when you understand that, you understand fun is very global. Soccer is the largest sport in the world. And all it takes is just a few people in a ball, right? And people everywhere play them, right? So you can create those things and you can create culture around those things that are unifying. And if you understand, if you approach it from that perspective, right? Because I think if you get too granular with it, or try to zoom in too much, you're let me build something that an Indian guy would love, or an Asian guy would love. It's no, just build something that people in general will love. Everyone plays chess, everyone plays checkers, right? Think around that concept, just having pure fun.
Yeah, some of my favorite mobile games that I played Madden, and I kind of went through a streak of playing chess online. I was definitely playing with international players that were kicking my ass. Guys, any other ingredients for successful projects with a global impact? We'll get back. Well, let's just get into some more details, right? We've been having a pretty high-level conversation, but you guys all have practical experience. So let's talk about campaigns and tactics that projects can deploy, like very practically, to make a more traditional audience buy into a Web3 project?
Sure. So I think what we've been spending a lot of time with all the projects that we've been working with is utility. Just selling a PFP in today's market is not going to work. And we feel that a lot of these communities of NFT provides people a safe environment. It's kind of like a club, right? Where people can come together, they can share ideas, they don't get judged. And then collectively, they actually start to produce new things. And a lot of projects that we work with, we always try to encourage them to make sure that there's token utility and it gives them access to events like what we're doing today and to meet with some of the creators, to kind of jam ideas and collaborate on that front.
I just agree with everything you said. Like, our whole thing is, utility, right? And thinking about when someone buys something, they're part of the community, then what? You know what I mean? And so, how do you create this? How do you build a transactional tool, right? And Web3 is to me like the best way we're gonna get over the hump is not explaining it, is by just showing people how to interact. And so thinking about, the sneaker awards, thinking about the metaverse, thinking about, the Armor card, like 1, 2, 3 utilities, right? And so now we get to kind of serve our community with different trinkets, right? Or the Pokemon goes to different kids and a t-shirt, a hat, and get you there in preparation for the big conference or the basketball game, right? So when we're thinking, my personal project, the oatmeals is, I'm making my friends as oatmeals, letting them mint 1,000 of themselves, and if they want to make an album out of their oatmeal, they can. If they want to transport their oatmeal in a video game, they can. If they want to have, if they want to spend 1,000 bowls and get a whole, whatever the next merchandise drop is from all of the players in the ecosystem, we're making these experiences viable. Then I'm going to my homeboys and saying, yo, you own a sneaker shop, you own a coffee shop, you should take bowls instead of, as well as dollars.
You also had a sellout with your Black Santa project,
Yeah,
and my understanding is there are a lot of new NFT purchasers that grabbed onto that collection, right? How did you get them to do that? Because that's a lot, right? You got to download the wallet, you got to do a lot of stuff.
We partner with Crypto.com, so I think Crypto.com showed us how a process can be easy. We priced it at $10.
Keep the prices low, find a good partner that works with your audience.
Find a great partner, and then in order for it to translate, you have to do in real life events. And you have to have a brand that is going to make sense in a physical space, in a digital space, right? Before it makes sense in a crypto space. So we did a lot of meetups, a lot of thinking greets, got involved in other people's projects. So that's, price low, find the right partner, and then put yourself in the ecosystem, through Black Santa, through our Discord. We were buying people's projects just to show the support and the love and bringing them into our space, into our studio in LA, and just celebrating every time somebody dropped.
Those are gems.
The way I try to describe it is when you get into Web3, it's like going to your best friend's grandma's house. Go in, take your shoes off. If she offers you some food, eat the food, introduce yourself, and be respectful. Because what I've noticed from some brands is they rush into the space. So, we need to do this shit right now. It's this is not going anywhere, right? Take your time and guys like Baron are interesting because they've been investing in doing VC stuff longer than a lot of people. So they understand that long-term focus, right? I think Mike Tyson, who's one of our partners, he's done a really good job with this as well, right? Mike's whole retransformation, he's a fucking philosopher that will beat your ass. It's really interesting, how he's grown as an individual, right? He's done a lot of stuff in the space, where we got into Cool Cat super early. He did a drop with Corey Van Loo, shot Corey Van Loo's super fucking talented dude.
Yeah.
And he didn't seem like it was a rushed cash grab, right? And so with these brands that are coming into the space, you can tell who is just doing it to be like trendy and who isn't. Like Alex, who's a mutual friend of mine at Barron's, you know, he works at OpenSea and like he's like the partnerships guy there, and like he was very impressed with Coca-Cola, for instance, and how much like Coca-Cola thought about it. But if you look at like obviously the Coca-Cola is just a drink, but when you think about it, like Coca-Cola does all kinds of like cool shit for no reason, right? Like why does Coca-Cola have a kiss collab? Like it makes no sense, but it's just to be like, yo, we get this shit, right? And I think a lot of brands or like people like don't understand that, like because they hear a lot of noise, right? Everyone's telling them do this, do that, do this, do that, right? There's probably like in the NBA, like there's a lot of people that made a lot of money because of NBA Top Shot, right? It's basically like Uber, if you will, like with how much wealth has been created. So they had a good experience in Web3. And so for them, like transitioning isn't that hard because you have a good experience. But I think like poorly thought after on-ramps, like poorly thought after entries, quickly become permanent exits, right? People get into the space, they buy something that's a fucking scam, and they're like, I just lost all my money, I'm never doing this shit again. Right? But if you look at the successful projects, you know, they deliver on utility and value for people. If Barron pricing this thing at $10, you're like, oh, this is $10, like I can do that, right? But then you go into the Discord and you're talking to people, you make friends, like, dude, that was definitely worth $10, right? Even if like, I just read a lot of negative things about Bored Ape Yacht Club sometimes, but it's like the greatest wealth generation event in like Web3 in a long time, right? And like, that's a really interesting phenomenon, right? Like when you make people happy like that, it's just good PR. So I think in general, like a lot of like brands and celebrities just need to slow down. Like everyone, like what I've noticed is like everyone has like a Web3 guy now. Well, this is about Web3 guy. It's like that scene from Big Short, like this is my coin. You know what I mean? But most of these people don't know what the fuck they're doing, and it's really not that complicated. Just like going back to the grandma analogy, just spend some time. Like this shit isn't going anywhere. You know, just be more thoughtful and like plan stuff out. Like you don't need to rush into it, but it feels like you do because it's competitive. But it's better. It's all about execution, not timing.
Yeah, totally. You know, a lot of brands approached us to be involved with NFT LA. It's a sports, entertainment, music. End up doing a partnership with us because we mutually agreed we couldn't do it right, and let's wait till next year. Let's like put some time and thought into this. Let's make this meaningful for you. So I think that's a really important point. Is there's no rush, right? Slow your roll. So this has been an amazing conversation. I have one last question before we wrap. There's been a lot of serendipity in this room this week. Some really fun encounters that I've had. How can we just, in general, accelerate serendipity in this space, do more cool shit like this, create more community, create more collaborations? How can we move everyone forward faster?
I'd say we'll start with a spirit of giving than taking. And that's something that we've always been practicing. The more that we give, we get back a lot more in return. And that works tremendously in Web3. Sometimes we can't invest. We find a way to promote the project, we bring them into an event, and somehow or another they will reciprocate that goodwill in a whole range of ways. And I think the Web3 community really values that. And I think that's one thing that we all can do within this room. When we meet people, we should find a way to promote them or introduce them to someone. Even if it's not relevant to us today, someday it's going to be very relevant.
We should probably do some, that's awesome. Yeah. And Prakash, might there be an opportunity for us to do events not just in the US about this stuff, but bring some folks over to Asia? What do you think?
Sure, yeah, so we're definitely going to bring NFTs SEA to Singapore in September. Every step of the way, what we've been doing is bringing the community together and trying to level things up. We've got the support of Edge of NFT, who's the the organizers of NFT LA. And the real key thing is what we're trying to do is, I had a great experience with them in LA. We're trying to bring them to Asia. We're trying to bring them to another crypto hub. And eventually we want to bring everyone in this room to NFT LA. And I'll let
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for this. I have a new word, or we have a new word we like. Thanks for the soft shell. So yeah, for those of you in the room here, I want to offer you guys a little gift because you're here and you care. We have an early allow list for NFT LA with some dope pricing and early access to everything we're going to do. If you want to take out your phones, you want to go to 2023.nftla.live and you can get on our early allow list and you'll be the first ones to be able to get tickets to the next NFT LA. I can tell you that we're also collaborating with some amazing folks like Baron, and we're cooking up some VIP experiences that have never been done at a conference. So it's going to be dope. Our goal, we did a lot. We tried a lot of things in our first year with 5 months of execution time. We have a whole year this time, so I think we want to raise the bar on what NFT was from an integrated experience level. There's some new things that we're doing. For example, another little bit of alpha is, I don't know if he's here, but Israel Wilson's going to lead inclusivity and diversity track, right? A whole track based on inclusivity and diversity. We're going to do a lot more tracks like that built into the core conference, so you don't have to, yeah, the side parties are great, right? But we're going to do the event on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Do your side parties on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday after. We're going to create a home that feels comfortable for everyone. That's our goal.
I appreciate that, man. And you let me be a part of that. And you let MTU be a part of it. Because last year we did a satellite welcome to LA, and then we did a think and greet on Friday, and you guys came through and was like, yo, just come mess with us. And so I appreciate that. I'm excited as well.
I think the side events are really important. The satellite events are really important. Some of the best times happen in these small rooms like this, right? But I think it's also a responsibility when you're organizing a conference. Next year we'll have 10,000 people to make it big and bold and have thought-provoking, amazing panels and lectures and keynotes, but also to make it somewhere where everyone feels like they're welcome and can have one-on-one conversations, learn about communities and sub-communities. So we're going to try to thread that needle at the core event as well, and with everyone's help and input along the way. So yeah, I guess that's probably a wrap, but any other closing words, Soby, in terms of how do we all cut through the noise and create more connectivity tissue?
I think a lot of it is like, honestly, most people are capped. Like, literally cut through the hype. Like, literally no one knows what the fuck they're doing. Like, I've worked with a lot of people, and I literally tell people, I actually don't know what I'm doing all the time, you know what I mean? Like, I met some dude at our last event in LA who was like, oh, I sold my ape and you sold yours. I was like, bro, I was literally trying to drive home to delist mine. Like, I don't know what I'm doing, right? And I think part of that is like why people believe the hype is like, and I don't mean like the hype of Web3, I mean like what people are like shilling and stuff all the time, right? Like, you need to understand people's intentions. Like, no one gives a shit. Like, they're just trying to dump on you, right? But like, blockchains are interesting because you can actually like check the chain and see what people are doing. But I think it's really easier to like cut through the noise if you, like, ETH could go to $100, I'd still be here. Like, I don't give a shit. Like, I really have like a lot of belief in this, right? But like, when you zoom out and you have a long-term like bias, like the anxiety goes away a little bit, right? Because you feel like Web3 is an incredible wealth creation event. So you see all these other people that are like doing well, and you go, I need to do it, I need to do it, I need to do it. But like 5 years for generational wealth is like amazing. Like, that's a great time period, right? So like, if you can take it longer term, you won't get caught short term like pit stops, but also like make friends. Like, actually make friends in the space. Like, that's the best way to do it. Like, I was lucky to be early to crypto, but like where I'm really lucky is like I have really good friends around me, you know what I mean? And like really good people. And so like that makes it a lot easier because you can share ideas and like, you know, like when things go down bad, like, you know that like, hey, that like there's people I can reach out to, talk to. Like in my real life, like I don't really talk to that many people about what I do, right? Like, I'm a founder, I'm doing all this shit with the group, and like I like to compartmentalize, but the fact that I have friends that I can actually reach out to and talk and have a conversation with,
that matters more than anything, right? Because I think a lot of people that, maybe some of the people that are here, you feel like you're the only person in your friend group that like is interested in this stuff, right? And like you try to talk to people like, oh, this shit's a scam, dude, what, blah, blah, blah. But then like, if you can find like-minded people, like that's what it's all about, right? Like if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together.
And alright, well, I think that's as good of a place to wrap it as any. Guys, just quickly shout out your socials so these guys can stay in touch with you and talk with you later today. This was amazing. Thank you all for your time. It was definitely a highlight for me of this week, so thanks so much.
Guys, there's alcohol, there's a lot of good people in this room. Please have fun, network, and find ways to work together. Enjoy yourselves.
Y'all can follow us on Twitter and pass it on to Elizabeth. That's
Alright, Prakash is going to send an email for all
Oh
of
yes,
us.
you can follow us at Enjinstarter on Linktree. You can find us on all social networks. Enjinstarter.com.
You can find us at morethanus.io. I am Baron Davis. I'm always open for DMs on Twitter. So thank you guys. Appreciate it.
I'm at Soby Life, S-O-B-Y Life on Twitter. Also at Ex-Populus. Yep.
Alright, and at Edge NFT and at NFT LA Live. That's a wrap.